Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast. Join Tyler and his team as they unlock the secrets to achieving financial independence through wealth-building strategies inspired by Robert Kiyosaki and other thought-provoking leaders.
Learn to build leveraged streams of cash flow that land in your pocket and improve your quality of life.
Gain access to cutting-edge ideas that will increase your productivity and streamline your success. Find out how to supercharge your retirement plan so you won't have to retire with a pay cut.
You can escape the rat race.
Are you ready?
It's time to Learn to Earn with Tyler Sheff.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Guys podcast, folks. It's that time again. It's Friday morning. If you're one of my early birds, it is time to learn to earn. Last week, we talked a little bit more about motivation. We talked about negotiation. We've got some future episodes coming up on negotiations. I got some great feedback from the audience on the calls and some of the commentary. We talked about different ways of negotiating, how to get to the yes, how to get to the why, how to dig the information out. That's important, and that's something that I hope you take action on. For those of you that have not joined our Facebook group, one more time, you go to cashflowguys.com/group, cashflowguys.com/group. In that group is where I post a lot of my live videos when I'm out in the field. I'm talking to people, things like that. If I'm making videos and you're looking for them to be posted somewhere, that's generally where they're going to be, because when I go live on Facebook, primarily I'll go live within that group. Also, we have the new Cash Flow Guys podcast page on Facebook, which is just the general business page. You go on there, give me a like. I'd appreciate it. You just simply type in the words Cash Flow Guys and podcast. That takes you right to that page there on Facebook. So reach out to us and support us. And we're going to be streaming to a couple different pages at once, but primarily a lot of the real good stuff and the stuff I don't necessarily want to go out completely in the public and whatnot, I will put into the Cash Flow Guys community, because I do have control over who's in there. I'm pretty excited today, guys. It's going to be a nostalgic episode for me, believe it or not. There is some nostalgia in my life. Now, you all know, if you heard my story, if you've been all the way back to episode 1, you know that I originally got into this game as a rehabber. I was a flipper, and I was wholesaling. I think before they had a word for it, back then, nobody told me that I didn't have to close on the property to make money. I was out buying property, paying closing costs, and then turning around and putting a little lipstick on that pig and selling it. And as we did more, I got a little better at it, started actually doing some good quality rehabs and made some money, lost some money too. Regardless, still a great experience. I've been looking far and wide, looking for an expert, a true expert, what I believe is an expert. And I'm a tough sell, but I think I found somebody today. I know I found somebody, or they wouldn't be here on hold on the show, getting ready to come on here. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Don Costa. Don is the host of the Flip Talk podcast, which is a relatively new podcast. And folks, you know that I'm going to be speaking at PodFest this year, and I'm also going to be at a podcast movement in California this summer. And I'm a tough sell with the podcasts. I believe in good sound quality, good content. I got to tell you, this is a show you need to listen to. Just go to iTunes or one of the other podcatchers. Go to Flip Talk, just FLIP Talk. And that will get you right to his show, which we'll talk a little bit about that. Don's been in the business about 10 years, began as a wholesaler, and then switched to flipping. Don, are you with me?
I am
Welcome
here,
to the
yes.
show. Like I just said during your intro, if you were listening there, it's been hard for me to find somebody who I feel is successful in doing it. Now, my partner, Paige, I'm sure you've heard the show and talking to Paige, and she did a lot of rehab. She did more of the commercial end of things. Back in the day, she was a general contractor with apartment buildings and whatnot, but it's good to talk to somebody out in California. Boy, you've got a challenging market, but it sounds like from what I've heard that you've done pretty good out there taming that beast, so to speak. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we are in the Central California Valley of California, so we don't have the inflated housing costs that you do in LA or the Bay Area, but we still have, I guess, a higher market than some of the Midwest. So, and we just try to find homes, first-time buyer homes, second-time buyer homes that we know are going to move quick, and we take a jump at them and do well doing it. So
that's cool.
My background is flipping twice,
Yep.
like you. I got into it before before the market crashed, and ran a loosey-goosey business and made a lot of money doing it, and then basically had my rear end handed to me when the market crashed. And so this time around, it was really important to set up a company that focused in on systems and timelines and just running things like a business. So that's kind of where we're at today.
I like the fact that you mentioned systems, because that's something that, like you, I did the same thing. I ran kind of flying by the seat of my pants the first time around. Now I'm investing a whole new way. I'm bringing private capital into the mix. We're doing some syndication work. We're doing it right this time. We're not taking chances, not taking unnecessary risks. So I'm a big believer, certainly, in systems. And have you? I'm sure, being a systems guy, you've probably read the eMyth.
I'm about halfway through it, believe it or not. I'm a big systems guy, but I'm only halfway through.
Cool. Well, you've got a head start on it. That's definitely for sure. And if you haven't read the eMyth for real estate, they've got one just for real estate, which I just listened to the audio version of that a few weeks ago, and I highly recommend that book. So, ladies and gentlemen, the eMyth is a book written by Michael Gerber, and it was put out several years ago as a guide for people getting into entrepreneurship. Now he's spun off and he's teamed up with Dan Merrill in this case, and I can't think of the other person's name, but the owners of, oh boy, it escapes me, Fortune Builders. That's it. Yeah, they've teamed up and they co-authored this book, and I've got it in audio, like I said, and I got to say it's a pretty darn good book because it pertains directly to real estate. Now, and I'm glad that here that, systems folks, for those of you that are listening, that's one of the things that I lacked as a rehabber. Now, when you talk about systems, Don, you're buying materials, I'm sure, in some sort of bulk, or you've got plans in place. So you're not, when you're coming into a flip, can you give us like the 10,000 yard view? You've kind of already have a picture of what you're going to do as you go in, or what's that looking like?
Yeah, we just made a change in our business recently. So I'll kind of walk you through what we were doing and then what we're doing now. But basically, we essentially set up a system where we actually don't buy any materials. We have built relationships with contractor crews. Now contractors in this business, as you know, I think whether you're buying whole guy or a rehabber, getting a good contractor stuff.
Oh boy, yes.
That's kind of the first. Yeah, that's kind of the first part of building any kind of system, is building the right team. You can't execute anything without the right team. So we worked really, really long and hard to find and keep and kind of coach and get these contractors to where we needed them to be. And now we have 4 good teams that primarily do all of our business. So with that said, originally we had about 3 color palettes that we'd use regularly. And we just go in and say, this is going to be color palette B, this is going to be color palette C or A or whatever. And they go through and they would do, whatever it is we're going to do to the property. And so we had a really good grasp on cost and so on and so forth. And that's part of the system we use for kind of just having structure in our pricing and our rehab. We recently changed. We brought in a designer. We pay her a small fee for each property, and what she does is we've set a budget for materials. So X amount for tile or X amount for granite, and she goes in and she finds the colors and the styles that she feels is going to fit that property best in that price point. And then so that way our costs don't really change on our project. Just now we're producing a better project in the sense that, it's not a kind of a cookie cutter rehab that everybody knows is ours. Every property is different now and has its own little touch and fit. So if it's a Spanish style exterior, may have a Spanish style rehab. If it's going to be, something that looks a little more modern, it's going to have more of a modern feel than we originally did. So the importance, if you've kind of noticed, is we have really worked to fine tune what our cost of materials should be for each project. And, we've also fine-tuned what our cost for labor should be for each aspect of the project. And that hasn't changed. That's the, you get into, do you buy materials or do you change your color scheme for each project and so on and so forth. That's all relative to, can you control the cost of labor and the cost of material while doing any of that?
Yep,
if that
absolutely.
Makes sense.
I love the fact. Now, I wish that's something I would have thought about back when I was rehabbing, is hiring a designer, because let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a dude. I don't have I have no business picking out colors. That's kind of what Jill does when we bring on a new apartment building online, is she goes out and does all the design stuff, because that's so not my thing. And Don, I'm sure you probably walk a lot of other people's from time to time, and maybe you've even bought some of other people's failed projects, because there's probably more rookies out there in the world trying to do this unsuccessfully, as there are people like yourself that are doing it right. You've got a system in place. You're taking the steps to be smart about it, and you're coming out on top most or all of the time. How the designer, I don't even know what to say about that. I just can't believe how sometimes the little things are the things that I tend to skip over. It's like that are so
right,
magnificent in the end result of what happens, because that's, as an agent, I'm also a licensed realtor. My audience knows this. And, one thing I see a lot in rehabs is you walk in the house and it's like got burgundy walls and you can still smell fresh paint. And I don't think that a lot of the rehabbers, they're not rehabbing to the end user. Do you find a lot of that out in California where they're not taking the steps? They're thinking they're doing what they think is pretty, but not necessarily what the buying audience thinks is pretty?
Yeah, you do see that a lot. You do see people personalizing, or we try to keep everything neutral to a certain degree. Even with the designer, it's gray tones or it's brown tones. It's still in a neutral frame. If there are several things that happen if you try to be too specific in what you're doing, or you try to do what you would like to see in a house. One is you're going to alienate a lot of your buyer pool if you go too specific. And the other thing is you're going to over rehab.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you end up spending a lot of money you didn't intentionally spend because you just got to have this upgraded granite, or you just got to have this light fixture that's $200 more than you budgeted for. And what people don't realize is, $50 here doesn't seem like a big deal, and $25 there and $100 over there doesn't seem like a big deal. But through the course of a project, that can become thousands of dollars and really change whether or not you're going to make money. So it's important to stay within kind of a neutral box. Like I said, we have fixed cost. Our designer goes out and sources the material, sources the colors, puts kind of a palette together, makes sure it all works, and it's within what we expect it to be as far as budget goes. And then we stay within that box. We don't, we might maybe get into a project and think, man, if we move that wall, we can sell this for $10,000 more. And it's only going to cost us, $1,500 to move that wall. We might do that, but you're not going to see us go, you know what, if we just spent that extra $200 in that granite piece, it would look so much better. No, that doesn't fly.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess the exception would be if you're doing something really high end, but even then I see your point, because who's to say you haven't identified yet who your end customer really is. I mean, neutral, you're safe. Like you said, if you're with the grays and the earth tones and things like that, you really won't get hurt, because that'll appeal to, number one, everybody's furniture. But number two, it's easy to expand off of that the little bit I know about design, at least what my wife's taught me. Yeah, I find that pretty interesting. And what type of market time do you guys usually experience on your flips out there? Once you've got them done and they're 100% ready to the time you get them sold, what's a reasonable expectation that a rehabber should have?
Well, okay. So if you're asking when we list the property to the time we actually get it in contract, our average is probably, most of the properties we'll list on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll have them in contract by the following Wednesday or Thursday. That's pretty much where we're at consistently. Every once in a while we'll get one that goes out a couple of weeks. But on average, we're about a week before we're in contract. And most of that's just negotiating if we have multiple offers or we've countered something. But we try to price. We really, really try to price where we get an offer the first weekend. And, we try to do the rehab in a manner that we get an offer the first weekend. My business is run on time, and just to kind of like elaborate on that, like everything we do is based on annualized ROI and speed, and for several reasons. One is because if you're working with investor capital, the more times you can put that money to use in a year, the more they're going to make. So whether I'm JV and joint venturing, where I do a profit split with an investor, or I'm paying, say, 8% and, a point or two interest, I'm more valuable to that investor if I can put that money back to work 3 times in a year versus the guy that, takes 8 months to rehab a project. That's one reason. Number two, obviously, the more consistent we are with our time, the more consistent our income is internally. Cash flow to a business is so important. And then, of course, number three, you and I being through the crash, we know that no market is forever. Nothing's guaranteed. And, we want to make sure that, if I can turn a property in an average of 100 days, basically 3 months and 10 days, then that's not a long time to be in a project. So if there's any kind of, inclination that there's going to be a shift in the market, I'm going to be able to react to that. So versus if I'm in a project for 8 months, and I'm halfway through my rehab and I'm not controlling my timeline of my rehab, and there's a change in the market, I could end up losing my butt by the time I get to the end of that project. Versus, I might lose a little bit of my profit if I'm quick. I could lose all of my profit if I'm not quick. So, there's a lot of reasons to manage time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've got that a little bit going on in my market. I've got one rehabber that, this person they bought 24 houses from me in the last year. And I'm a little scared because I've explained to them, hey, guys, you might want to think about getting some of this stuff, these rehabs done, and getting this stuff moved, because we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace, not so much that prices are necessarily hyperinflated. I think we're back close to where we were in before pre-crash. It depends on what market you're in, of course, and what people's opinion is. But at least in my market, we're almost back to where we were in 06, 07. However, this time I see many different factors. Back then it was, the mortgage crisis and when the things that hyperinflated the market. But now we've got issues with the stock markets going like wildfire. That things are going one day and then it's going down. We've just had an election, all these different things. Besides turning in 100 days, which is that's impressive. That's strong. That definitely shows me that you've got systems in place, because most of the people I know in my market, they're more like the 8-month guy. What are a couple other tips that can help people kind of make decisions, as far as we know we have some uncertainty around the corner? What are some steps that you're taking to kind of mitigate that risk a little bit?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that I'm of the opinion that we actually, I think, especially in my market, we have some upside. So I'm managing and mitigating my risk, because that's what you do as a smart businessman. But I'm betting on an upside to a certain degree, because I think that as they start to creep interest rates up a little bit, I think a lot of people who have been sitting on the fence renting are going to jump into the buyer pool in a panic to get a hold of properties that they're afraid that they're going to get priced out of with the interest rates. So, and that's kind of what we're seeing in our market right now. Suddenly properties that we might have got 1 or 2 offers on, in a weekend, we're getting 7 or 8 offers on. So there's a little bit of that going on already with I think the election and some of the things that have happened. So, but primarily it's just, essentially the rest of it is just managing your business, man. I mean, we don't make square pegs fit in round holes. If the numbers don't work, we don't do the project. We just don't. And we have our buying criteria, and, it's not, a lot of people say, do 70% minus your rehab. That's not, we operate off of a percentage. We want to make 15% cash on cash. That's kind of our goal on every project we do. And so we have a little formula that tells us whether or not that we're going to accomplish that. And if that number is there or better, we do the project. And if it's below that, there are some factors where we'll do a little below that, but essentially if it's below that, it's a no-go. And so first and foremost, it's buying right. Having a formula, having a criteria for buying that you don't deviate from. Every time I've even had the inclination to deviate from our buying criteria, it hasn't worked out well for me. So set your standard, buy right, manage your process, manage your costs. We have pre-negotiated costs with all of our contractors. We're well aware of what I should say it's ours, but it's their product costs are going to be, as far as what paint's going to be, baseboard, carpet. We know what their actual costs are, and we know our price is a wholesale price. It's a very fair price where we're making money, they're making money. And so that's controlled. And then our timelines are controlled. So none of us have a crystal ball, and none of us have a magic wand that says that we're going to protect ourselves. So, but what we try to do is just run it like a business. We don't deviate. We don't speculate. Like right now, I know in my market, I'm getting multiple offers, but that's not going to change my buying criteria. I'm not deviating from that thinking, well, if I buy this at 10% cash on cash return and I take an extra month to get it on the market, then maybe it'll be a 15% by then. That's crack logic to me.
Yeah.
So
I say that again. Goodness.
So,
yeah, I agree. Wow.
Yeah. So that's the best advice I can give everybody is whether you're a wholesaler, a buy and hold guy, a flipper, at the end of the day, this is a business. It's in a business where you got to make sure that you have all your controls in place and you run it like a business. And if you're doing that, then you should be able to at least react properly to market changes. You can't always control or say you're not ever going to lose, but you can react properly, which means you can mitigate any losses or issues you're going to run into.
Now, for you've been doing this a decade. You know what you're doing. You've got a system. You got teams in place, and all these things working. I see a lot of investors, and being in the coaching arena, and of course having the show. I'm sure you get these phone calls too. A lot of people everybody still wants to get into the flipping game. A lot of new folks out there and I'm finding that, because I take a lot of these calls as a realtor as well, they just got to get a deal. They got to get something. You just talked about coming up with your criteria, sticking to it, and they are just hell bent for election on. They got to get something. They got to have a project to work on because they're afraid that their crews will go work for somebody else. And what's a little piece of advice that you could give to these people, being kind of I'll call you the senior rehabber, the senior fix and flip guy of my network anyway right now? What do you say to these people? How do you reach out to them? Word of caution.
I see that around here too. I see guys just basically buying stuff that just keep their crews busy, whether or not they make money, right? I just see that as a recipe for disaster. One of the reasons why I got annihilated in the crash was because I wasn't paying attention to my business, and I was just living on the edge. I was kind of had that same mindset. I was arrogant. I was like, you put me in any market in the United States, anywhere, and I can wholesale a property, make 10 grand, no big deal. And there's just really, it doesn't work that way, right? There's no way to run a business. Like if you're running a McDonald's or you're running car wash or any business, are you just going to, they call them loss leaders, right? In retail, are you just going to do loss leaders all the time? How are you ever going to make money? So in retail, if you drop a coupon that's a loss leader and somebody comes in and buys that, and you're going to lose $5, but they're going to spend, $200, and you're going to end up profiting, $100, that makes sense. But in flipping, doing loss leaders, basically, as I'll refer to them from this point, how does that have an upside? There's no advantage to that. It's really just, you're putting your money to work with no return. And if anything happens in the market, you're going to lose your butt. And all I can say is, from my experience, watching these people do this, it's like a house of cards just waiting to fall.
Absolutely.
The wind blows the wrong way and they're coming down. So don't be desperate to do a deal. That's somebody new and even somebody seasoned. We all go through that. We do a pretty decent volume. We put properties in contract almost every day. So even for me, it's like, if I go a day without putting a property in contract, I'm like, man, am I losing the game?
A little twitchy. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, is it all over? We're human. We all go through that, right? But you got to fight that instinct. It's business. And you got to run it like a business. That's what I'll go back to. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. Just don't take the risk. That's the big thing. It's better to have passed on a deal and had that deal make money than done the deal and had it lose. It's better. What's that saying? Your money's made in the deals you don't do.
Exactly.
And because those are the ones that are going to take you out of business if you're not careful. So my advice is just keep your head on your shoulders, run it like a business, and know that the right deal will come. And then the other thing too is a lot of people, they're limited on their capital resources. So why tie up your capital on something that's not going to get you the return, or that you're hoping to get a return? I don't know how many times I have, because I'm human, right? I've thought, okay, maybe I'll square peg round hole this one. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then like 2 days later, a home run lands on my plate. And, had I have done that and tied up that capital, I may or may not have been in a position to do the home run. So you got to think logically. The good deals are going to come. You just got to stay focused and work for it and wait for it. And if you're patient, you will be rewarded.
That's good advice. That is good, solid advice. And unfortunately, I hear a lot of people coming in with their initial plan. Some guru taught them is, well, we're going to teach you how to flip for a while. And then once you flip for, a couple of years, you're going to save up millions of dollars. And then you're going to go out and buy a couple apartment buildings. The end. It's like, whoa. How about you focus on maybe be a hard money lender for an experienced flipper? Learn from them for a while, and correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but go out and get involved in somebody else's project, add value to somebody like you, for example, and maybe they would come in as a hard money lender or some sort of a capital partner to gain some experience, even though they're more of a spectator, obviously, because you can't take all your time educating the world on how to flip, but get some practical education first. Am I correct?
Yeah, or just know that you're not going to have things go smoothly and be okay with that. And for you and me, I don't think we'd be okay with that necessarily. when I started, I started with a guy who basically said, I'll put up the money and you go out and find the projects and we'll split the profit. And it was kind of a sweet deal because he actually, he funded the rehab, he found the rehabbers, the contractors, and I got to kind of see that firsthand. I got to see the process. I got to see what he was doing and why he was doing it. And one of the things that I'm been kind of good at is I'll watch somebody's operation and I'll see, okay, what are they doing right and what are they doing wrong? And what would I do differently? And then I go and implement it into mine in the future. So I got to see that and kind of learn how he's doing things and how I would probably do them differently. And then, so by the time I did my very first rehab where I ran it on my own, I had the idea, the foundation of, okay, things got to be done in this order. These are some of the people I can call to get the work done, and so on and so forth. So I would say that if you can partner with somebody in that capacity, that would be good. Or like you said, you do a private money loan to somebody who's flipping and ask questions. I have private investors I work with that they walk the projects on a weekly basis and ask me, why you do this, why you do that kind of thing. And so they, over the years, have gotten to know how and why I do things and how I run my operation. And so I think if they went out and tried to flip one on their own, they would probably have a pretty good grasp. But that's a great way to learn too. So there's a lot of ways to do it. The other way is you go out there and just know that you're probably going to get annihilated in your first deal. And if you're willing to pay for that education, just make sure you're in a position to pay for that education. But don't go out there and think that you're going to hit it on the park on your first one. If you do, that's great. But that's not everybody. And you got to, again, mitigate.
Yeah, that's for
that
sure.
risk.
One of my mentors, John Schaub, he talks about, he calls that a seminar. You go out and, you're going to make a mistake. Right. It's going to cost you 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it's going to cost you. Well, there's your seminar tuition. But at least you got that hands-on experience in the process. Don, when I was doing some research for the show, I stumbled across your 5-minute flip. We got a few minutes left. Can you talk about 5-minute flip real quick? I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, 5-minute flips it's a project we've been kind of putting together where we're going to be doing, little mini videos on what we actually encounter on our projects and, how we go about solving those things. So it's not going to be a fluff piece. It's not going to be, hey, here's a walkthrough of my project. It's going to be, we opened up this wall, we found this.
That's cool.
And, these are some of the solutions we have, and this is the one we chose, and this is why. And so it's going to be kind of like your 5-minute tip of the day type of thing, but it's going to be your 5-minute flip. And so we're going to be releasing it after probably, I would say, after the end of the first quarter this year, and we'll get it out there, and hopefully people will like it.
And the best way for people to get over there is it's spelled out, the word 5-minute and flip.
You can do number 5-minute flip. You can do the word 5-minute flip. It will all take you there.
That's .com.
So yeah, 5minuteflip.com.
Cool.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
ladies and gentlemen, 5minuteflip.com. Either use the word or the number 5, or the word 5minuteflip.com. You want to watch Don walk through some of his projects, register, I'm sure, and then you'll get access to that information. So that's pretty cool. And that's outstanding. What's the best way to reach you overall if somebody wants to learn more about what you're doing, maybe invest in one of your projects or something like that? Do you have a standalone website as well besides the 5-minute flip, or is that it?
You can contact me at don@fliptalk.com. Okay. And, I do reply to that. So anybody who has any questions or wants to talk about doing some business together, that's a great way to get a hold of me. We have a couple different Facebook pages. One is Strategic REI, facebook.com/Strategic REI. And that is the company we flip under. And so we don't post every flip we do on there, but we post some progress pictures and finished pictures of some of our flips and different things in that segment or on that page. So you can go check out some of our work. And then we also have a page at Flip Talk REI, which is facebook.com/Flip Talk REI. And we're going to start, we haven't got a lot of information on there yet, but we're going to start really interacting with that page a lot. So that's where you're going to be able to kind of interact and learn more and ask questions.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time today to come out and give us an education. I think that was a great episode, and I think it was tons of value. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to learn more about what Don Costa has to offer, as I just said a few minutes ago, go to 5minuteflip.com. And, of course, you can reach out to Don directly at don@fliptalk.com. That's don@fliptalk.com. I'll make sure that I have this contact information in the show notes. So if you're on an iPhone or you're on an Android, look down at the show notes. I will make these linkable. You can click on the links and reach out to Don directly. And, of course, you can reach him one more time at strategicrei.com. If you want to follow his progress on his projects and kind of get a little bit of information in your brain and a little experience under your belt, maybe living vicariously through Don and his team. Don, Thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you.
Have a good day, folks. And just to wrap it up, if you have any other questions for me, not related to flipping, of course, Don would be the expert now. I'm going to pass the torch to him permanently for the rehab piece of it. But if you have questions about buy and hold, raising private capital, notes, things like that, you just get stuck. You're trying to figure out how to get started. Go to cashflowguys.com. That's cashflowguys.com. Put a /Ask Tyler. That's ASKTYLER, cashflowguys.com /Ask Tyler. That gives you a link to my calendar. You are more than welcome to book a time on there that fits your schedule. That will give you a free 30-minute consultation with me. Hopefully I can help get you unstuck, get you pointed in the right direction. That's your opportunity to communicate with me directly. Also, as a reminder, we're doing Coffee with the Cashflow Guys. That is a weekly on Friday mornings at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Sorry for you in California, but Friday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. If you want to register for that event, go to cashflowguys.com /coffee. Cashflowguys.com /coffee. That will give you, once you register, you'll get a link to join that video chat, and you can talk directly with me. You can kind of be a fly on the wall if you want to. You have questions, you want to get them answered, or listen to the questions that are being asked by the audience. Gives you a great opportunity to, number one, engage with me, engage with your fellow investors, have a good time while you're doing it. And if you are registered and you cannot make the events, I understand a lot of you are working, recorded episodes are going to be available on the website for those that are registered users. So if you want to register, go to cashflowguys.com /coffee. And we will see you next week.
This concludes today's episode. You don't have to wait till the next episode to learn to earn.
Head over to cashflowguys.com and contact Tyler and his team for more powerful tips and ideas so you can start generating multiple streams of income and escape the rat race.